I think it's fair to say when it comes to a legislative agenda, Joe Biden and the House are on the same page, swiftly passing everything from new gun control measures to expand and strengthen background checks to an immigration bill that would create a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children, two sweeping voting rights bills, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and H.R. 1, sometimes called the For the People Act, and of course the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But in the Senate, not so much. And it's not just Republicans blocking those bills. A fellow Democrat is standing in the way too. That, of course, would be West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who opposes his party abolishing the filibuster, which would allow bills to pass with a simple majority, letting Democrats go it alone without any Republican support.
I've always tried to work in a bipartisan way, and I've voted in a bipartisan way in the last 10 years of the Senate. So I'm doing what I have always done.
But with the Republicans so far unwilling to budge on almost anything, going it alone may be the only way forward. Will the Democrats take it? I'm joined by Assistant House Speaker Katherine Clark. She represents the 5th Congressional District in Massachusetts. Congresswoman, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So, Congresswoman, those bills that passed the House and others have wildly strong public support. But from a few hundred miles away, it seems to me that with universal GOP opposition and with the stance Senator Manchin has taken, they are dead in the Senate. Am I wrong?
Well, Jim, you are absolutely right that these bills that you just described are wildly bipartisan every single place in this country except in the Beltway. And so we have to take that as the mandate that we were given as Democrats in 2020 to be bold, to come up with solutions that meet this moment for the American people. We are in a moment of racial, economic, and climate justice, and we have to continue to do that work. So when it comes to issues as fundamental and as widely supported by Americans as getting corruption out of politics and protecting that fundamental right to vote, we simply can't take no for an answer. And we have to continue to find a path forward because the fragility of our democracy has been shown, and we have to answer this moment and protect it.
Well, what is the way forward? Even though Senator Manchin has said he supports the John Lewis Act, and I know that Congressman Lewis was a great friend of yours after a lifetime of just incredible work. He supports that, but he doesn't support getting rid of the filibuster, which means even with his vote, it won't reach 60. He doesn't support the For the People Act, which would help nullify these grotesque voter suppression laws that have passed in a dozen plus states and before the legislature and so many others. So is that not wishful thinking on your part? What is the path to passage in the Senate without 10 Republicans and Joe Manchin?
Well, I can tell you what I do believe that Joe Manchin has also said, and I believe him, that he wants to protect the right to vote. And we can never underestimate public sentiment. I watched it happen with the ACA when the healthcare was being threatened for millions of people. And I literally could walk the halls of the office buildings in Washington and hear the phones ringing. And I think we are going to have that same phenomena with these voting rights bills. People understand what is at stake and that we have to find a way forward. So it has to be both of these bills, because the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is what you do to prevent voter suppression and oppression. And H.R. 1, the For the People Act, is how we cure the voter suppression laws that have already been passed. So we need both together. And I think what we have to do is use public opinion, use that sentiment to get to Joe Manchin, because I simply don't see Republicans at this moment, when they are still bought in to the big lie around our elections, coming to help. So Chuck Schumer said it today. He will give Joe Manchin a little time to bring those 10 votes. But we also need to be looking at the filibuster. It is from the Jim Crow era. Its time has come and gone. It has always been used as a barrier for Civil Rights Act, and we cannot continue to let it be that barrier to moving forward and protecting our democracy.
If I can stay with my negativity in the face of your optimism, Congresswoman, for a second, you know, it wasn't, to me, the final clue that bipartisanship is dead for at least the immediate future is not just that the January 6th commission engendered virtually no Republican support, but the thing that put me over the edge, most people don't even know that Mike Pence has a brother who serves in the House of Representatives.
Right.
Mike Pence's brother voted against a commission to look into an insurrection where insurrectionists were saying, hang Mike Pence, his brother. And here's the, if you'll excuse the expression, moronic line from your colleague, Congressman Greg Pence. Hanging, talk about weird words, hanging Judge Nancy Pelosi is hell-bent on pushing her version of partisan I don't even want to read it. He's against this thing. What I want to know is the House can do something here even without support from the Senate. The House Democrats can advance a select committee that can investigate. Are they going to do this? Are you going to do this?
Listen, we have to get to the bottom of this. You are absolutely right. We have to memorialize the truth, because what we saw on January 6th was not just an attack on our Capitol, but an attack on the fundamental vote that is the key to maintaining a democracy. So listen, it was flabbergasting to see colleagues across the aisle, like Congressman Pence, when his own brother was being hunted down in the Capitol, saying, no, we don't want to get to the truth of this. We don't want a bipartisan commission. It was also dangerous and alarming to see that a 54-35 vote in favor of the commission was a failing vote. So it shows us that we have to do two things. You know, I am willing to go along if the majority leader in the Senate wants to bring this up for another vote, see if he can find it. But I think the Republicans have shown us over and over again, they are not interested in the truth. They are not interested in pursuing facts. They are not interested in working on behalf of the American people. Their allegiance is to Donald Trump and perpetuating that lie. So we will do everything in our power to make sure that whatever procedural form it takes, that the truth is memorialized and that people have faith in that outcome and that report of what led up to it and what we need to do to protect our democracy going forward.
You know, Katherine Clark, I know that making childcare affordable is one of your primary goals, and along with universal pre-K, it makes up roughly a quarter of the $1.8 trillion in the American Families Plan that Joe Biden has proposed. But once again, I think it was Barney Frank who said a lot of Republicans believe life begins at conception and ends at birth. The Republican Party, that was always the family values plan, will there be votes for this in the Republican Party, particularly since Joe Biden wants to pay for it by raising the capital gains tax? Will there be any support?
Well, let's back up. A year ago, I proposed $50 billion to stabilize childcare. As we saw this industry that is just collapsing, and it operates on the thinnest of margins in the best of times. And the pandemic was the worst of times. That money got passed in the American Rescue Plan without a single Republican vote. We also got money for vaccines. So we now have the most vaccinated people in the world in this country. It was money for reopening schools. It was money for investing in our small businesses to get our main streets operating again. Not a single Republican vote. So we are not waiting for them. I think you described it earlier as that I have optimism. I have resolve. We have to do these things. If we want to turn around the economic situation for women and make sure that we are reversing this 33-year low of women participating in the workforce that we know is because of childcare and school closures, we have to make this investment. It is long past time that we stop building an economy based on the underpaid or no paid wages of women, and that we make this investment in the American family and redefine childcare not just as a private decision between a parent and a provider, but as the public good, as that transformative care that allows parents and especially women to participate in our economy and gives our kids a great start.
By the way, I should just note, as to update people, the first filibuster by the Republicans in the Senate was on the commission. The second filibuster was on a bill that would combat pay discrimination against women and LGBTQ workers in the workplace. Insane. The other day, we woke up and read that people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, George Soros paid nothing in income taxes, even though they do pretty well most years. Back in Massachusetts, there is an effort that was approved for the ballot yesterday in November of 2022 that would address some of the inequities, called the Fair Share Amendment, the millionaire's tax, adding a surtax on all income for people who make more than $1 million a year. Do you support that, Congresswoman?
I do. I supported it when I was in the legislature, and I support it today. And I support it looking at the federal tax code as well. We have to make sure that our tax code is balanced again, and that middle class and low income families are not paying for very wealthy people who too often get a free ride. This is part of the income inequality that we see. This is part of the wealth divide that we see. And it is part of meeting this moment of racial reckoning in our country. We have to look at how all of these issues intersect. And while we have this time of tremendous challenge, this is the opportunity to rebuild an economy that includes everybody. And we can pay for it by making the very wealthiest individuals and corporations pay their fair share.
Before you go, Congresswoman, I only have 30 seconds left, so it's got to be quick. 3 years ago, Nancy Pelosi cut a deal to stay as Speaker, in return for which she agreed to step down at the end of next year. Is she going to honor that commitment? You're pretty close to her. Is she going to honor it?
You know, I hope that Nancy Pelosi stays for as long as she would like to.
That wasn't my question.
And
is she going to honor it?
I think Nancy's a person of her word. And, I think that she has not shared plans with us. But I think that if that's what she said, I think that she plans to honor that. But
if she honors it, will you be a candidate? If she honors it, will you be a candidate?
Here's what I can tell you, that I never saw myself in Congress, never mind in leadership. But I'm going to continue to do whatever I can do to move these issues forward. And we have a good team, but it makes a difference when we have women and people of color at the leadership table. And I will continue to do whatever I can to help us get back on track, see the American people, and make their issues priority in Congress.
I'll take that as a qualified yes. Congresswoman, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.